Men of Reddit, what is a time you felt creeped out by a woman? I was at the club and a woman walked up and grabbed my D. I'm like, no, that's mine. When my girlfriend puts her jumper on, she lets it get stuck on her head, then makes angry ape noises, and it creeps me out and scares me. Invited her over. I fell asleep while watching movie. I woke up because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe because she was trying to make out with me while I was passed out asleep. I worked as a lifeguard for a summer camp. We hung out with the camp counselors a lot throughout the summer. There was one counselor, let's call her Mary, who always gave me a weird vibe, but I ignored it. At the end of summer we all go to Mary's family cottage in Wasaga for the weekend. After the first night we were all sitting around for breakfast and Mary told everyone how cute I was when I was sleeping and that she took photos of me while I was sleeping. I noped the duck out of there. Was at a party and passed out in a couch from intoxication. A friend of a friend who I had known had a crush on me for months was also there. I guess at some point almost everyone at the party went outside. And for an undetermined amount of time while everyone was gone, she proceeded to grope me through my pants and kiss my neck. I only know this because after an undetermined period, someone came in, saw what was happening and told her to leave. I only have very vague memories of her actually touching me, but I recall not having the strength to move. Found out she is now posting me too. Edit. The status was taken down shortly afterwards, either from close friends confronting her about it, or she simply remembered what she did. Girl, not woman. I was 40, at my girlfriend's daughter's pool party. While in the pool, one of the daughter's 13-year-old friends grazed my cock. I ignored it thinking it was an accident. Then she did it again, full on cupping me while dragging her breasts across my arm. Put on my best dad voice and told her that was very inappropriate and to not do it again. Mind you, other adults were within 5 feet of us. My girlfriend asked me what it was about. I didn't want to ruin the party, so I put her off and told her about it after the party was over. Couple hours later had a very awkward conversation with the girl's mother and stepdad about it. Apparently the girl had some issues and was in counseling for, among other things, sexually inappropriate behavior. When I was 16 or 17 I had a job working in a staff cafe at a large department store. This one female employee who must have been in her late 40s hit on me relentlessly. Every day I worked as a server she would flirt with me. No, flirt is too mild a word. She would graphically tell me what she wanted to do to me. Other people around? Didn't matter. She was a heavy smoker and looked like she was gaunt and looked older than she was. And she was creepy as hell. My manager told her to knock it off, but it didn't work. In the end my manager moved me to the back area doing food prep because of this one lady. Even then I could hear her asking where I was from the counter. I didn't really mind being in the back area though. I was just glad to not have to deal with her anymore. Was told by an older woman that I'm cute and she was going to abuse me. Despite of how it's portrayed on a lot of pornographic media, I got really creeped out by a woman offering to blow me behind an alley for free. I declined and ducked off. Met a Romanian girl from Transylvania and brought her home. After we finished having sex, and I'm nearly asleep, she says to me, "What would you do if I told you I was a murderer?" My eyes shot open. "Oh, is that something you're likely to tell me?" She just giggled. I didn't sleep much that night. My mother is creepy. She would do things like explicitly hit on my friends when we were as young as 12. I still haven't told her that all of my friends never wanted to hang out at my house because of her. My mother is not attractive and does not listen to polite or rude rejections either, so avoiding her was all you could do. I was a newly minted 18-year-old at the time and visiting my dad. They had some new neighbors that were throwing a party to get to know the neighborhood. The woman, maybe 40 at the time, was chatting with me. In hindsight she was flirting with me and kept touching and rubbing my arm. Finally she asked how old I was, and when I replied I got met with 18-year-old skin. I love it. It's so soft and supple. I noped right out of there. When I was in college I was working retail and I had creepy girls quite often. Anywhere from a co-working accidentally running her hand across my crotch or ass every time we walked past each other, or some weird grandma relentlessly trying to set me up with her 14-year-old granddaughter. Or some mid-40s women stick her business card down my pants while I was trying to help her son find something. But the absolute very worst was my first ever open bar wedding that I went to after turning 21. I got stupidly drunk and was sitting in a chair trying to fight off passing the duck out when some drunk girl comes up to me and tries to stick her disgusting used panties that she has sweat in all day into my mouth. I had a drunk boss follow me into my office during a holiday party. It was years ago, but I still remember her leathery skin and the smell of her musky perfume. I don't remember her exact words as she bent over my desk, but I was in there to get my briefcase and coat so I could go home, and she intimated that I wasn't going anywhere until she said so. She was drunk, 5 feet 3 inches and maybe 100 pounds at the ripe old age of 60 something, so she sure as hell couldn't stop me, but she was my boss, so I hesitated. Finally I smiled and walked right past her back into the party where I found my HR rep. I asked her to speak in private. She wrote up some letter that I signed, and she said she'd keep it in her desk in case anything ever happened again. I don't remember the contents of the document, but I got the feeling this was not standard practice. This was a long time ago, and it was my first real job, before I even graduated college, so I'm shaky on the details. But nothing ever happened again, and this boss wasn't weird to me after that, so I kind of forgot about it when I left the job about a year later. Still, I remember being really spooked and not knowing how to handle it. Tip for reading this thread: stop imagining all the people are hot. Married woman hitting on me while telling me I reminded her of her son. I had a student when I was a TA that left a note and a pair of her panties in my mailbox. Time for a Halloween story. One year, I bought a cheap cow costume from Target and wired it up with LEDs to make a cowborg costume. A lot of the LEDs ended up in the udder, which was somewhat unfortunately located right over my crotch. I went to a party that had a bunch of drunk nerd girls at it. I have never had my crotch grabbed by so many complete strangers before. I was at a bachelor party in Palm Springs and my friend left the club with a girl. Said when they got to her house the dogs were scared of her and wouldn't come say hi or wag their tails. First bad sign. Then, he ends up sleeping with her. When he's done he tries to leave, she will not let him, like holding on to him. Then she whispered to him, "Want to know a secret? I killed my ex-husband." He bolts, goes out the back, hops the fence and eventually calls me screaming to come pick him up. Second-hand source. But the dude was scared. In high school, this horrendous looking chick MSG'd me on Facebook and asked if I'd help her with math and that she'd do anything for me. I clearly knew where she was going with this, but I decided to make use of the situation by politely telling her how my dorm would need vacuuming and that I've got a lot of dishes to be done. She proceeded to straight out say how she wanted to give me a blowjob and told me everything about her semi-abusive childhood and early age sexual experimentations. Needless to say, I kept my mathematical information to myself. Had a boss who held my career hostage to force me to have a sexual relationship with her that lasted for about a year. Long story and a lot of it happened. Lots of creepy stuff. Despite everything that happened, the creepiest part was when she'd make out with me. She was like a lion looking at piece of meat. Heavy, silent breathing, transfixed eyes, getting all over me. Really creepy it. I guess a tie would be when I was pinned down by her and she was trying to push her finger up at me. I kept telling her to stop. When I said no she whispered back yes. Runner up to all that was when I was in a bar and some moderately attractive girl started talking to me, so I stopped to chat her up. Eventually she revealed she had a boyfriend and was really trying to set me up with her fat ugly friend. Said fat ugly friend never said a ducking word the entire time, and neither did the boyfriend who eventually joined us. At one point she forced my arm onto her friend's breast. I had enough at that point and walked off, but I'm still creeped out by that whole situation. It was really weird, especially since that boyfriend and the ugly chick never said a word and looked out of it. My wife and I simultaneously starting singing Someone's in the Kitchen with Dinah, with no explanation, so I guess I creeped her out too. Had an ex drive some 2 hours to surprise knock on my door and deliver a wreath of garlic which she went out of her way to tell me she didn't poison. A girl at my school had drawn rather explicit fanfic of me and my best friends. As it turns out, I was not flattered when I discovered it like she thought I would be. A girl started grinding on me at a club and I felt her putting her hands on my thighs. I thought she was just really getting into it, but it turned out she was trying to pickpocket me. Wasn't really creepy, but I had a random girl in the mall run her hand across my chest as she passed by. Her friend followed and yelled, "She thinks you're hot," in my face. The only time something like that ever happened to me, it was simultaneously surreal and hilarious. I had this girl come into the restaurant every day for a coffee in Melbourne. She never really gave me a second look or paid me any special attention. She was gorgeous though and very shy. One day she came in shortly before I finished and a couple of us sat with her and had a drink because it was her birthday. She ended up hammered after like 2 drinks. I eventually left to go meet some friends and I got a text from her saying that she was in love with me and all she wanted for her birthday was me. It was a little creepy but also really sad. I felt terrible. A girl I worked with this past summer asked me out. I told her I don't date co-workers, and she got a little embarrassed but said okay. I thought that would be that. Over the next few weeks, 2-3 nights a week, she would call me over FB Messenger and leave voicemails begging me to talk to her and lamenting how we couldn't be together, and leaving long rambling drunk texts that were completely illegible. The calls and texts would start at around 11 PM and wrap up at around 3 AM. Sometimes she'd call me up to 7 times in one night. I never answered the calls or replied to the texts. At work, I would pointedly ignore her while she found excuses to be in my vicinity. She wouldn't say anything, though. She'd also tell our other co-workers that we were in love, but couldn't be together because we were co-workers. I respected her privacy up until I heard that she was telling people this, at which point I'd show them the FB calls and texts. They felt pretty bad for me. It was pretty damn weird. One girl would text me every single day that she had a crush on me, and would tell me at school, after I had told her multiple times I was not interested. Eventually I just told her I was gay to get her off me despite not being gay. It happens all the time. I live in a pretty black neighborhood and always get told by big ghetto women that they wanna grab that tight white ass. Which makes me horrified that it happens to women a lot more by people who are physically much stronger than they are. There has been a few times actually from being groomed by a woman in her 30s when I was 14 to just a few years ago a woman from a hen party full on stuck her hand down my jeans and pulled on my Johnson a few times. Also had more than one woman put their hand up my kilt and grab my balls for no apparent reason. Edit, I suck at spelling. During my grad school graduation party, this girl who I found repulsive in every way was really drunk and kept trying to make out with me, like coming up and trying to stick her tongue in my mouth. No matter what I did and how far I tried to get away from her, she'd find me and try to stick her tongue in my mouth. I briefly considered slapping her in the face, but figured that wouldn't go down well in a crowded bar. I ended up having to go home early because she wouldn't leave me alone. My time to shine. I was sitting at a dive bar with 2 friends last weekend. We were sitting down, talking and taking Snapchats. 2 girls in their early 20s who were in the bar walked to us and one of them said, "Were you filming us?" We weren't. So I turn my head toward her and say, "Sorry, what?" She replied, "That's what I thought," and punched me in the face. By the time I realized what was going on, they were running out the bar laughing. The bartender chased them but they got into a car and left before she had time to grab their license plate. About 10 years ago I pulled into a gas station and filled up. A woman approached me with her 2 young children, probably about 6 years and 8 years. She asked if I could bring them to her car a couple of blocks away. I wasn't too anxious about her intentions considering she had 2 little kids with her. She's probably not planning to carjack me, so I agreed and we piled into my truck. In the 2 blocks of driving she grilled me about what I did for a living and where I went to college. And magically she was interested in the same career, but of course wasn't actually in that career, or trained in it, or really knew anything about it. By the time we were getting her kids into her car I was very suspicious that she had some kind of mental instability. She asked for my phone number in case she needed advice about software development. Sorry to whoever had the number 1 digit off from mine. Hopefully she wasn't too insistent that she knew you. Oh, and her kid spilled sunflower kernels all over the backseat of the truck in that 2 blocks. I did audiobooks. Back when they were only for blind people, we mailed them out on CDs. They were popular, and the company did pretty well out of it. I could pick the times I went in, and it was pretty much paying for my university. We got brought out by a company who wanted to do more erotic fare, which got more hardcore over time. A lot of custom audio as well. I found it hard to keep a straight face doing this, but it was fun. They went from burning CDs to getting them pressed, and they started getting bulk sold. Not just blind people wanting books, but they had a bulk market. Scary as all hell bulk market. Then we started to get fan mail. The fan mail was so very not tame. The woman who was running the company went to an erotic expo thing in the US, and while there, proceeded to sell my home address and phone number to some pretty extremely crazy possessive fans there. Some of the calls and mail I got were really not good. I left the job. It was a shame. I loved making the CDs, but damn, if I lived over there, I think I would have been kidnapped. I kept away from relationships for a bit after that.